Hello and welcome to the OCVarsity Gridiron Show, Week 1. I am your host, Jonathan Khamis with the Orange County Register. To my right, Dan Albano. To my left, Steve Fryer. On this hot 93-degree day in La Habra. We are at La Habra High School. We'll have more with the Highlanders later. First, guys, our players of the past week, which was Week 0. I'll go ahead and go with Matt McDonald of Mission Viejo. Matt had 5 touchdowns passing, 6 total with a rushing touchdown in a 48-21 victory over Santa Margarita. Steve, you have another offensive player. This guy likes to do his work on the ground.
Yeah, and also caught a couple passes too. Andre Cotton, running back over to Lisa Niguel. 3 touchdowns rushing. Caught 2 passes, both for touchdowns, in a big win over Long Beach Jordan. He rushed for 254 yards. Big debut for his senior year for Andre Cotton of Elisa Niguel.
D for Dan. D is also for defense. Who you got this week, Dan?
All right, I got Garden Grove middle linebacker, Fitu Lupi Mata Celia, 8 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 pick six, in a 43-6 victory against Santa Ana Valley. Very active defensive player for Garden Grove.
All right, let's get to our game of the week this week. It will be La Habra, and they will be at Tesoro. La Habra 1-0 last week, defeating El Toro. You were there, Dan, 42-34. A heck of a rally, scoring 3 consecutive touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, Tesoro losing to Edison last Saturday, 31-14. First, I'll throw to you, Steve. What do you like out of La Habra? What do you like out of Tesoro? And who wins? Why not?
Well, I'm going with the La Habra in this game. I think they're really solid. I think we've got them, number 7 or so in the county rankings. Tesoro number 14. Tesoro lost to a really good team. Edison's pretty fired up this year to play in Coach Dave White's final year. So they're going to win a lot of games this year, I think. Tesoro's pretty good. You know, they lost a pretty good senior class, Devin Monster, of course, at UCLA and on and on. And La Habra beaten El Toro a little closer than I thought, because I thought La Habra would win that game by a couple more touchdowns, something like that. I like La Habra winning this game, even though they're not here at La Habra where they got a huge advantage. They got to go down to Tesoro. It's a long cruise, but I still think La Habra's got the skill to make this a win.
Dan, your thoughts on this one? Tesoro, they're starting their season without some transfer quarterbacks, and then against a team like La Habra, you know you have to bring it.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Poston today at Tesoro. They got some eligibility guys they're still waiting for. Chase Peterson is one of the guys that is kind of generated some buzz. They're still waiting to see if when he gets cleared by CIF. You know what Coach Poston mentioned to me is that they're going to have to try to stop La Habra's ground game, which was pretty potent and starting to get going against El Toro. So that means they got the Eli Anderson run really well, scored 4 touchdowns for La Habra. They're using Prince Ross. They're trying to get him as many carries as they can. So Prince Ross was coming out of the backfield. But that's where Coach Poston, and it's a smart strategy, guys, because, you know, La Habra's new at quarterback, you know, so, and Fogel started to make some strides in the second half, but they're going to force maybe La Habra to beat Tesoro through the air. So you got to do that. You got to stop the ground first.
Like the X's and O's, Dan. So with La Habra, we caught up with the Highlanders earlier. Here's what they had to say.
But you know, you got to stop big kids. You know, you got to stop the athletes when they're in space with a big kid. And their defensive line, to me, I think is definitely a strength of their team, the way they play. We got our work cut out for us.
So I know they have a group of good receivers. They have one pretty big receiver, but come out physical, hit them right in the mouth early to set the tone.
Playing good competition makes you better, you know? Yeah. Mission Viejo, Tesoro, Colony, Los Al, and then El Toro.
Our thanks to the Highlanders for hosting us here on the Gridiron Show. Steve, we'll transition now into a neighborhood rivalry, if you will, with Tustin and Foothill, and he's back. The double wing returns, guys. Myron Miller, coach of Tustin, 72 years young, guys. He picked up the 39-20 victory in his return over Dominguez of Compton. Tustin had 376 yards on the ground. You know what Tustin brings every single time you face them. It's stopping them that could be the hard part, Steve.
Yeah, Kenneth Carr had a big debut week for them last week in the win over Dominguez. And Foothill's got Bobby Garcia at quarterback, had kind of a rough outing last week. Threw a couple touchdown passes, but also a couple INTs. So I think he's going to get right over there. Doug Case is really high on him. But I really like Tustin in this game. I think that they're, you know, we have them about number 14 or 15 in the county, Dan, and I think they might sneak into that top 10 at some point.
There we go. Foothill losing last week to, how would Hacksaw say that, Steve? At
Atascadero.
Yeah, that's 36-24. But they beat Tustin last year. Foothill beat Tustin last year 13-7. So, revenge is on the mind of the Tillers.
I think for Foothill, last week they gave up a lot of yards, to Tascadero, and they gave up some ground games too. So that's going to have to be a concern. They're going to have to obviously stop Tustin. Myron's funny. I talked to Myron a couple weeks ago, and he, doing some preview, and he's always saying how, I think we're going to pass a little bit more this year. We got a little passing game, and coach, they just pound it, and that's always the number one option. And speaking of ground game, Dante Swain is the Foothill running back. Got to watch for him in that battle with Ken Carr and Derek Soto.
There we go. All right, final game, guys. Bishop Amat visiting Servite. Steve, I'll throw it to you right away. Servite beat Fountain Valley last week 44-0. You said nothing was learned about Servite. Why?
Well, Fountain Valley's in an interesting situation. They had that coaching turnover, 2 of them. Servite, I kind of expect them to steamroll. So it went as I expected, guys. I thought Servite would roll on them pretty good. We know Lytle's really good at running back, at quarterback rather, over there at Servite. How good the O-line is and the D-line is, really not sure yet. They're going to get tested pretty against Amat. Of course, Amat got mowed down badly by a really good Mater Dei team. I expect Amat to play better in this game. I think it's going to be a tight game, guys.
Yeah, speaking of that score, Mater Dei defeating Amat. They running clocked them 63-14. JT Daniels had 6 touchdown passes. And Mater Dei scored 3 touchdowns in their first 4 plays. Dan, Servite, Bishop Amat, what's your take?
Well, who else had a great game for Mater Dei was Amon-Ra St. Brown. 7 catches, 167, 4 TDs, and then some punt returns. I think, Servite just got the game plan from their rival, the Monarchs. I think they're going to air out Tyler Lytle, and they're going to try to attack with DeLon Hurt, who just picked up his first Pac-12 offer from Colorado, and they're going to air it out. And I think that's what Mater Dei barely ran for any yards against Amat. They were throwing at will and striking at will. And I'm looking for Servite to win this game big and to air it out there at Cerritos College.
All right, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Steve. I'm Jonathan Khamis with the Orange County Register. This was the OCVarsity Gridiron Show Week 1. And for all your latest football updates, make sure to check out OCVarsity.com, where we've got you covered.